Some of the questions we got in response to the campaign that was initially set out were, I've spent all this money on technology, how do I make sure my employees are utilizing it and that I'm getting the most out of it? How would you address that?
As you and I have spoken, Mike, the issue very often is not so much do I have the right technology. In many cases, with the assistance of folks like yourself and Al, the right technology is pretty easy. The right technology solution is pretty easy for them to find. Many times the key is leadership in implementing it. And that leadership is really all about the culture that the leaders have provided. How do I ensure that I have a culture that embraces change, a culture that embraces growth, which are just the practical application of continual improvement. To continuously improve, we must always be looking for new and better ways to do what it is that we set out to do. So the key answer to that is let's examine the leadership culture and ensure that we have the right example being set so that application and there's a freedom, there's a lack of what we don't want is fear of failure. Fear of failure leads to, I find, a fear in technology use. People are afraid they're going to mess something up, they're not going to use it correctly, they're going to break some rule, get themselves in trouble, where if we can create an environment where people are not afraid to use the technology that's been provided to them, they're not afraid to mess it up, to experiment with it, to play with it, with the proper help, proper guidance, they need to make sure they get the training and follow that training. But that's how I think we can ensure that we're going to get the most for our technology dollars.
So if you're looking at the culture in a company, what are some of the key things you look at, and then how do you work with business owners to develop the areas where they need to get up to speed?
Well, what I look for is not so much a tech-savvy president or owner, and you might think that leadership through example is always the way to go. What I have found is we need strong leadership in those who are applying, implementing, and teaching the technology. So I look to see what kind of resources are being made available to teach those who are using technology. What I look for in the upper management, in the CEO and the presidents of the company, is not so much that they themselves are technology experts, but that they're embracing the utilization, encouraging the utilization, and have a very positive attitude and a supportive attitude of those in their company that are using it. Some of the most successful companies I've worked for, we're talking about companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars, with hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The leadership of that company have not always even been up to speed on something as simple as getting the most out of their email. But they had themselves surrounded by people who were tech savvy, on top of technology, keeping up with the current and the latest use of technology as it applied to their business. It wasn't the newest and latest gadget. It was what is the best available for our application and what it is that we are doing. And that's what I look for in leadership. When I interview a company and I'm examining the culture they have, that's what I'm looking for when I get to the area of, so what are you doing to make the most of technology as it applies specifically to what your needs are and what it is you want to accomplish.